Hi,
Hello,
how are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Uh-oh.
You don't mind if I'm recording?
Nope, it's fine.
I'll someday down the road give it back to you. It takes me a little while to figure this out.
You know what? Technology is always changing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I feel so old and like my little kids can do it, but I can't.
My granddaughter is way better at certain technology than I am.
So, let's start with what do you want to talk about today?
What do I want to talk about? Um, Let me, if I may, give a quick plug for an important charity project I'm working on.
Perfect.
Um, we all know that the Los Angeles fires early this year caused billions of dollars of damage, um, cost so many people their homes, so many people their lives. And I decided that I could not just sit by and let that happen and do nothing about it. So I am editing a charity anthology that will hopefully be available sometime at the end of the year. I'm hoping mid-November. It's really exciting. These are all crime stories set in about Los Angeles. And we're I've just gotten the stories organized, so we kind of know what we're going to be, and it's very exciting. There are 21 excellent stories that are going to be in there, and I'm plugging it because, first of all, I want to thank each and every contributor. I won't take up your time listing each name, but those
Please
20,
do. Please do. It's
um,
very important.
it is indeed. Okay. I want absolutely not to forget anyone. So if you'll bear with me, I'll get a list of names and I'll be able
Okay.
to share them with you. Hold on just a second.
Mhm.
Okay. Thanks a whole lot for waiting. I've got the names here. Forgive me, those of you who are watching, if I do not pronounce your name correctly. Working on it. Here are the people who submitted stories, and I am so proud and excited to work with them. In no particular order, they are Carolyn Birnbass and Linda Sands, Anne Marie Campbell, Brenda Seabrook, Amy Kleck. We also have EJ Knapp, Mark Bastable, Kaylee McAdams, J.H. Bogran, Cindra Garnett, Rosalind Tukowski, also L.J. Eklund, Emmy Proctor, K.B. Owen, Kelly Young, also John Turris, and we also have Stephen Ross, Sharon Marcello, and and yours truly. So those are the 21 people who have put their time and effort into being a part of this. And I'd like to also mention this is an international effort. A couple of the people, oh, I'm sorry, Kat Connor is also a contributor. Forgive me, Kat, she's also on the list. Um, she's a friend of mine. I should have known better. But just as an example, Kat is from New Zealand. So is Stephen Ross. I have contributors from Canada and, of course, the US. I have a contributor from Honduras. So it's really an international effort that I've been so grateful for. It's a lot of work, but that's okay with me. It's nothing compared to what the first responders and firefighters and so forth dealt with, let alone the people who were affected. So the anthology is composed, as I said, of 21 excellent stories. They run the gamut from light and I wouldn't go so far as to say comical, but with, funny kind of a take on crime to some pretty dark noir stuff. So we have a range of talented authors. We have some excellent perspectives on Los Angeles. We have some that actually take place during the fires and some that don't. I think you're going to love it, people. You're going to love it. Now, I said it's a charity anthology, and I am proud because what we're doing is not going to enrich us financially. All the proceeds will go to a California charity that is right there, boots on the ground, helping people find a place to live, getting them the mental health care they may need, making sure they get the medical care that they need. And so I'm proud about that too. As I said, the anthology is going to be available, I am hoping, sometime in November. They don't have the cover design ready yet. We're working on that and some of the other things. But that's my big charity project. And thank you for giving me a little bit of a chance to talk about it.
That is so awesome. Will it be available for pre-order somewhere down the road?
It will. My expectation is, and again, if you're an author, you know how this goes. Um, my expectation is that sometime in the autumn, I'm hoping perhaps end of August, September. We're going to have to see how it goes. It'll be available for pre-order certainly in Kindle format, and hopefully be able to have a scheduled date for paperback release too. So I know a lot of people prefer that nice feeling of paper when they're reading. You're one of
Me,
the
I do both, but I like to have the paperbacks. Yeah.
You're not alone. People like the feeling of holding a book.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely plug it all the time on the Facebook group, please. So it doesn't skip anybody's mind and it keeps it fresh. And then when the pre-orders come, they'll be like, yes, I have to have it.
Well, I'm hoping that will happen. I'm definitely going to keep mentioning it. And
Mhm.
one thing we were thinking about when we were talking about, how is this going to be? Obviously, there are logistical stuff. You have to make sure that the stories are ready. You have to make sure they're organized in a way, and that takes time. Um, but I was also hoping that it would be ready in November because it's holiday buying time. And for a lot of people, hey, I'm getting a gift for this person and I'm giving to a worthy cause. So this is hopefully going to be a good match for the time of year. We're going to see how it goes. But I have to tell you, I have been so touched by the response from people who wanted to write stories. Some people had personal stories to tell, and I will keep them that way. Um, here's why I'm particularly interested. Other people just reached out to lend a hand, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, don't you think?
Yes, very much so.
So I've been just floored by the interest and some of our contributors are people who've had plenty of work published and don't need this for the name recognition bit. Um, I've also had interest from people who have said, well, I'm not a writer, but let me know when you're ready to publish and I will splash it all over because, I'm in this group or I've oversee this website, like yourself,
Mhm.
who are out there helping with the other half of this, which is, we can write all we want, but if nobody knows about it, so I appreciate the fact that you and several other people are saying, hey, we want to help too. We're not writers, but we are readers and we want this in people's hands. We'll see. I would absolutely love to get a reading in a local store too to kind of gin up interest. We'll see, one step at a time, don't you think?
Yes, and you have good goals and a smart idea for the holidays and giving back, and you have people in place to help you after it gets out there. And I just find it amazing that some of the authors are from other countries that want to help too, and that's just awesome.
It is. You know, it reminds me that when it comes to helping other people, being there for other people, borders borders are not important. Um, do you remember the very serious earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand, maybe 12 years ago?
Mhm.
I saw the same thing happen then. We put together a project where fellow authors put together, packages of books that we then auctioned off, and it was a charity auction. So the proceeds went to earthquake relief. People all over the world, I am telling you, Robin, people, plenty of US people, um, Canadians, obviously Kiwis, Australians, all these people were like, yeah, I want to bid on this because, no, we didn't raise millions of dollars. We did what we could. But, you know, if if people get the chance, working together is really the way to solve things. And with the world as it is right now, it's so nice when you've got that working together and helping each other. And it's an international thing.
It gives you hope. It touches my heart, but it gives hope to everyone.
Well, we will see how it goes. You know, once you're no longer a kid, you know that the world does not always work out how you hope it will. So we're doing this little bit by little bit. We're doing this smart step by smart step. Um, and again, I cannot say enough about the people who've contributed their fabulous stories. They worked hard on them. They sent them in. They've been patient with me while I've read them and made comments on them. Um, they want this as badly as I do. And several of them have said, hey, when you get it together, if you need my help doing any editing or this or that or the other, like, this is how you work together. I cannot do this alone. I don't think one person can do anything like this alone.
Mm-mm.
But it's been a real outpouring. I don't want to spend our whole conversation talking about it, but it's been a real outpouring. And I'm really grateful that you're giving me a chance to plug it here.
Anytime. And like they said, and I'll say, if you need me for anything, I'll be glad. When they do an auction, I'll be glad. Want me to stand in a bookstore and sell it? I'll be glad. Yeah, in Pennsylvania. But which on to the next subject. You're from Pennsylvania.
Yes, I am. Um, I grew up in the eastern part of the state and went to school in the western part of the state. So it's kind of interesting. Um, I sort of consider the Philadelphia area my home.
I'm on the western part. I'm by
Where,
Pittsburgh.
really, where?
Beaver County.
Okay. I know a little bit less about Beaver County. I went to school at IUP. So,
That's a little bit north of us. Yeah. 79 up that way. Yeah.
yep, I remember it well. Don't try to do it in the winter.
Mm-mm. No, closer you get to Erie, forget it.
Oh, I know. Erie, north, or the Ohio border.
Mm, yes. Anyways, let's see. Well, let's start, if it's okay with you, about your educational books and then move forward. How's that?
Okay. Um, my educational books. This was the result. of a partnership I had with Teacher Created Materials, which is a little bit north of where I live. And their point was teachers, well, the name says it all, teachers who write and create materials for other teachers to use. And they are a publisher. So I worked with them freelance to create workbooks and activity books and things like that for children who are learning to read or struggling readers who need a little extra help, that sort of thing. So I did activities and assessments, and wrote little passages for them to read and respond. I also did, as a part of my work with Teacher Created, I also did a set of workbooks and activities for teaching English to non-speakers of English. And that was kind of interesting. Did that sort of thing for about off and on 10 years. I've also written my own academic academia books, looking at very quickly, because this has almost nothing to do with my fiction life. My background was in language education, bilingualism, and my doctoral dissertation was in dual language immersion programs, where students are learning both English and another language at the same time. So I did my research there, and I've got a couple of books that I co-wrote and wrote on those things. So I have some nonfiction things, and I switched to fiction in, I guess, 08.
I have all your books here,
Thank you. You're so kind.
and I don't have kids in fourth and fifth grade, but when they do, I'll definitely be pulling those ones out too.
That's so sweet of you.
So you
I
switched.
actually
Go ahead.
Go
No, I'm
ahead.
sorry. No.
I actually have a real interest in um, making sure that students have literacy, that not just can I read and write, because that's kind of a basic given, but so that they can read critically, make sense of what they're reading, ask questions of what they're reading, figure out things like what the author wants me to know and why does the author want me to believe that, things like that.
Hmm.
And so it was a real happy thing for me to be working with Teacher Created, because their goal was sort of the same thing. Let's make materials for teachers that are useful and practical, that they can use to support this. But anyway, that's my nonfiction. I'm so glad you have it. I hope your kids can use it.
They're gonna have to. Mm. So 2008, you went into writing mysteries and um, mystery, thriller, procedural, suspense. All right, like it could be called everything. You have a series of I can't remember the name. Oh my gosh, I have it here. And my Williams
That's the guy.
series.
Yes, that's a 5-book series. Will it be 6 or more? Don't know right now. I started that. Some people already know this about me, but since you don't, I'll tell you, and that way your audience can learn too. People often say, "Well, how'd you get started? What got you started writing fiction?" And it's interesting because the real person who got me started writing fiction was my 6th grade English teacher. She had us write stories in our grade 6 class, and she encouraged us, and she encouraged my writing. If you're watching this, Mrs. Lyman, I'm still here. Thank you. Um, she helped us to kind of express ourselves creatively. And that was the first time I wrote a short story. And I thought, gee, this is fun. But, life goes on and I went on. And so back in 2008, I was sitting at the dinner table one night talking with my husband and my daughter. And I think I was telling them one of my stories about, I've been in the higher ed business for a long time. So I have all kinds of stories about students and other grad students and so on. And I was telling one of them one night, and my family's like, "You should write a novel." And I'm like, "You think so?" "Oh, yeah, you have all these stories to tell." So I thought, why not give it a go? Why not try this? So I wrote and had my first novel out there um, in 2009. But yeah, my fiction writing started with my family's encouragement. It started with a dinner table conversation.
And where did you get the idea? Like you just pops in your head and then you put a little sticky note on your wall and then you come back to it and you're, oh, that'll be the next book, or he'll do that
I've
in the
done that. I've actually done that. Um, but to get to your first question, where did you get the idea? I wanted to write about something. I mean, people always say, write what you know. And in some cases, that's a good idea. You
Mhm.
don't want to be too comfortable with what you're writing because you should fight with it a little bit. Um, but I've always thought, write about something that resonates with you. I think I like that better than write what you know. Write something with you that resonates. And what resonated to me was the life of higher ed. We professory types know a lot about higher ed. And so I knew that I wanted a character who was not a cop because at the time I wasn't really thoroughly versed in police procedure. So I wasn't quite ready to have, okay, I'd have to learn a whole lot about being a police officer before I could. So he's not a cop. Joel Williams was a police officer, police detective, and now he's a professor of criminal justice. And I thought it was a sort of natural progression for his life. And it was something I could get my mind around too, to write about. And I thought to myself, well, what happens on campuses? Goodness, everything. Think about a college campus. Think about it. You have people from all over the world, possibly. You have people who are kind of thrown together, very disparate people, right? And they're thrown all together. Any kind of thing can happen. You have um, interactions among professors and their graduate students and department chairs, all kinds of stuff there. You have the students and their lives and what happens with them. You have administrators and staff. There are so many stories to tell on campus. Um, so I thought it might be a really good idea to have the campus, and I know campuses, I kind of know how they work. So I thought it might be an interesting thing to have a campus setting. And so I thought, okay, how would an amateur sleuth get involved in a case of murder? Because I'm not sure how you feel about this, but one of the things that you find with amateur sleuth crime novels is that there has to be a legitimate, believable way that the sleuth gets involved. Sleuths are not cops. Amateur sleuths, excuse me, are not cops. They don't have the
Mhm.
right to go ask people questions. They don't have the right to look for evidence or fingerprints. And many of them don't have the skills because they're not cops.
Mhm.
So I had to think, how would a person who's not a police officer how would he be able to get information and solve a case believably? And how would the victim, I mean, all of those questions circles around in your mind when you're writing. But it worked because people on campus tend to know each other. Even in a big campus, you have these little worlds where people know each other, and it just sort of fell together.
So you did find a way to connect them, to get this amateurs into, because they know so and so, or they're or in part of that so and so part of the school, the college, the clique, the
Exactly. In my first novel, Joel Williams gets involved because the person who gets killed, um, was supposed to work with him as part of his teaching assistantship and never shows up. Um, in the second one of Joel Williams' students asks his help because her partner gets murdered. And so, there's always kind of ways to draw, and actually I had a departure in one of my novels because in this one it was a study Joel Williams is conducting with two colleagues from other schools, and he finds out about this 2-year-old murder. So it allows you to play around a lot too.
mhm.
Um, I didn't want it to be, I didn't want to be faced with what some people call the Cabot Cove syndrome. I mean, in a small community, have you ever watched Murder, She Wrote?
Mhm.
Okay. Cabot Cove is a small community. Just how many murders can there really be in a little
Oh,
town? That
okay, I get that now.
that's the Cabot Cove syndrome. And when you have a campus, and the fictional campus I created is not a big, big, big school like NYU is. It's, you know, how many murders of people can take place? So I've had to think about that. Um, but if you know it, if you think about it, if you planned for it, you can have the flexibility. Um, but as I say, I don't know how many more Joel Williams novels there will be. He hasn't spoken to me just lately. So I'll have to wait till he does again.
I know of authors that do say that their characters haven't spoken in a while, so they've gone elsewhere for a little bit, and then boom, they speak to them and pull you right back into that world. Is that the same for you?
Yes, it actually is. I've had victims speak to me. I've had my main characters speak to me. Right now, I'm working on a novel that features my other main character. Um, so she's the one occupying my time at the moment.
What's her name?
Her name is Patricia Stanley.
Thank you. It's bothering me, and they want a rifle. So yes, thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I do the same thing. I'll think, okay, he wrote this book and this book and this book. What is, oh, right. And then you feel so silly when how did I not remember that?
Hmm.
But anyway, Patricia Stanley is my other main character. I'm just getting started on that series, but she actually came to life in one of my Joel Williams novels, in my second Joel Williams novel. She would remember I told you in one of my novels, she one of Joel Williams' students goes to him because her partner gets killed. Okay,
Hmm.
that student is Patricia Stanley. When her partner, Serena Brinkman, is murdered, Patricia is pretty sure it wasn't suicide, and she's pretty sure it was no accident. So she asks Joel Williams for help. Anyway, that's how she came to life. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh, that's nice. She's a good character. And then she wouldn't leave me alone. She came back after a few years and said she would like to have something about herself. And I thought, what would have happened to her after college? How would she have lived her life? Well, she was a criminal justice major and she decided to become a police officer. So she went into police officer training, and now she lives and works in, this is actually a real place, not a fictional one I made up. She
Mhm.
lives and works. She works in with the Malvern Police. Malvern, Pennsylvania is, for people who've not heard of it, it is a suburb of Philadelphia. Um, and it's right next to another suburb, Paoli, which is incidentally where her partner was from. Um, but she's a cop now, and she's in the first novel featuring her, A Matter of Motive. She was just getting started being a detective. She'd gone up from, you know, a ticket giving traffic kind of cop to a detective. She'd made detective, and this is her first murder case. So she has that to deal with. She's still coping with losing Serena. And if you think having your partner murdered goes away and you get over it, you don't. You move on, which she has. She has a new fiance, and they right now they're both telling me they're very happy. So I have high hopes for them. I'm writing now the second of the Patricia Stanley stories, and we'll see how much she has to tell me. Um, but she just was one of those characters that decided she wanted more than just a part in one novel. Sometimes they do that.
Is she, because I haven't read it yet, is she strong and uh
She's strong if by that you mean, if by strong you mean really intelligent
mhm.
and independent in her own way, then absolutely.
Yes,
But
yes.
she is also vulnerable, as we all are. Um, it reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend. We were talking about female lead characters in crime fiction, because he's also a crime fiction person. And one of the traps you can fall into is that you make them superheroes because, gone are the days and good riddance when female characters were blushing, simpering,
Mhm.
um, Charles Dickens types. Gone are the days. But at the same time, people are human. They are vulnerable at times. They get upset. They're wrong. They get scared and tired. They snap out. I mean, that is what human beings are like. And so I didn't want Patricia to be invincible just because she happens to be a lead character. She still works with her therapist, and I've put that in the novels because that is a part of moving on when you've lost somebody that you love. Um, she doesn't always do things right. She does, in Matter of Motive, that's the first novel to feature her. She makes some mistakes during the investigation, not critical ones, but she gets chewed out by her boss. And if you've ever been chewed out by your boss, you know how that hurts. And you just want to slink under the table and kind of move in there. Um, so she is strong, but she's not a superhero. And I think she's a better character for not being a superhero.
Realistic. Hmm. That's a story I'll tell you after we're not taping. Okay, going on to other books then. Uh, what else you're working on the anthology? Uh, you're working on the second book for her. What else is out there that you're thinking of or want to try or
you know, it's interesting you would ask that. It's nice to try new things and stretch yourself. I write flash fiction for that reason, and I have all kinds of little flash fiction. And in fact, one of my flash fiction stories led to my novella, Streets of Gold, which features another character that just kind of wouldn't leave me alone, go away and leave me alone. She is 15-year-old Stacy McKinney. And Streets of Gold tells her story. She runs away because her stepfather is, let's just say, a horrible person and leave it at that. Um, she runs away and she happens to see the aftermath of a murder. And the killers know that she saw them. And so it's sort of more a thriller than it is a mystery. And I tried my hand at that and I thought, the thriller, I made it a novella because I think sometimes thrillers get too long. Um, but the thriller was kind of an interesting departure for me. And am I thinking of following up with Stacy? Maybe. I could see her. She was 15 at the time of the story. That's a couple years ago now. So maybe she's at the same university where Joel Williams teaches and something happens.
Mm,
Or
and it comes together.
or maybe she has an encounter with I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, have you read a lot of work by have you read work by Michael Connolly?
No, I have not.
Okay. I recommend him. Um, an amazingly skilled writer. He has his main character is Harry Bosch, who's a Los Angeles police officer. Or he's done several things. The series is a long one, but he starts out as an LA cop. And so he's the first main character that Connolly wrote. Then we get introduced to his half brother, Mickey Haller, and that's kind of part of the Bosch universe. There are two other characters who are kind of in that universe because they feature it. And I don't know if I want to have a universe like that. It depends what the characters decide to do, but I could
Mhm.
certainly see how Stacy McKinney is going to do more than, where I left her, she was safe again and back at home and like that. But I thought, she's a good character. I can see something happening to her. She hasn't told me what it's going to be yet, but that's something kind of in the back of my mind. This year, though, my goal is to do the anthology, get that finished and right and the way I need it to be, and it needs to be, and then finish the Patricia Stanley novel, which I hope is going to happen early next year. Again, we will see.
Mhm.
Um, the beauty of being an indie author is you can work in a way that works for you. You still keep just as busy, but you do things when they happen rather than, oh, if I don't get this now, the publisher is there are wonderful upsides to getting traditionally published. It's every writer's dream. Anyone who tells you they don't care is not telling you everything. Um, Writers love the idea, but at the same time, nothing is perfect, including a publishing deal. So it's kind of nice to be able to set a schedule that gets everything done.
Mhm. Speaking of schedules, what is your writing process like?
Oh, beautiful segue. Um, what is my writing process like? If you mean, do I have set hours when I write? Not really. I try to, but I'm a wife, mother, grandmother. Um, I mean, I do other things, and so for me, writing is not at all an afterthought, but it isn't okay from 5 to 7 a.m. This is when I write, because sometimes it isn't.
Mhm.
I try to, the goal is to set aside a couple hours each day where even if I'm not actually writing something, I'm doing something in the writing world, like working on organizing the stories for the anthology or working on characters or taking
Mhm.
pictures to help me get an idea of something. I also keep a blog, so I put that in there too. Um, my writing process starts, the book process starts when a character introduces herself or himself. That's just the way it is. I don't know if every author is like that. I won't speak for other authors. That's how it happens with me. I'll have a character and I'll say, imagine what this character would do. And that sort of gives me my story. If I may, I'm going to give you an example because this one's been with me for a few years now, about 10 years, actually. No, longer by now. About 12 years or so, give or take, ago, I had this idea, and it was originally going to be a Joel Williams novel. I had this idea of a woman, a young woman from the 1920s who comes up to Tilton University, which is Joel Williams' fictional workplace, and she's murdered in the 1920s. And then now in the 2000s, somebody finds an old letter or something like that, and the murder gets solved. Well, okay. Everybody's been through something like this. This is back in 2012. I had the story begun and I started it. It was kind of an epistolary story. It starts with a letter that this girl wrote to her mom. And of all things, my hard drive crashed, melted, gone, goodbye, no story. Because at the time I did not have cloud storage. It was a newer thing back then. I didn't have it. So, cautionary note, take it from somebody who's been through it. If you're watching this, get cloud storage. It's not that expensive. Anyway, so I lost her story and I sent the hard drive to try to get it resurrected, whatever could be saved. And the guys did the best they could. I do not blame them, but they were not able to resurrect my story. So she went on the back burner. But she had introduced herself to me, you see. She wanted her story to be told. So I'm like, all right. And then I was doing other Joel Williams stories where her story just was not that story. And then Patricia's first story was not that story. But then she introduced herself to me again and she said, now's the time. So that her story is being told right now. This is the second Patricia Stanley novel I'm working on. And this is something, you are actually the first person to hear this. It is the story of, or I should say, part of it is the story of a 17-year-old girl who comes up to the Philadelphia area in 1925. And so it's partly her story, and it's partly murder in an antique shop where the antique shop owner is murdered. And how do those stories fit together? So she's finally getting her story, and I'm really glad of it because she waited a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how my writing process starts. I learn, I hear a character talking to me, and the character tells me, I have something that I want you to know about. And then I listen. Stephen King calls writers, you really are your character's secretary. Once I've written my story, and it depends on my life, it takes me anywhere from 8 months to a year to have a decent story. Then I send it to my wonderful, thank you, beta readers who tell me, this sucks, fix it. Or, this is really great, but I noticed this, that kind of thing. Once I get their feedback, I go back and fix. And by the time they see it, it's actually been through 2 drafts anyway. I don't know how you are, but a lot of people do this. They'll be writing and they won't even notice that they've left a word out of a sentence or that they've spelled a word wrong, DUE instead of DO, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through those drafts. I hear back from my beta readers. I fix the story. I revise it again. And then and I'm very, very, very fortunate for this too. Never underestimate the power of a good cover. Now, art is not my thing, but I have a good friend who is an artist, and she has been lovely throughout the years. She's let me use her artwork. In fact, this is a copy of Matter of Motive. Isn't that
Hmm.
beautiful cover? Isn't that a
I
beautiful
love
cover?
that. So colorful. Yes.
She did it. Um, Her name is Leslie Fletcher, and she is a wonderful Quebecois. Um, I really, really like her work, and it's been just really nice to have that resource for cover. So then I work out the cover and figure out all of those things, and then it's time for promotion.
The dreaded promotion.
Y-
Marketing.
Marketing, marketing is not my favorite thing to do, but you have to do it. Um, Not just so the sales rack up, although, it's always nice, but also you have to. The thing about books is you have to know what it is that the book is, and nothing really teaches you that like marketing does. Because when
Mhm.
you're marketing a book, you have to say, okay, what is this? If I'm selling you, for example, if I'm trying to sell you, let's say, a new flavor of chocolate bar, something like that. And we all know that the big players in the field are Hershey's and a couple of other ones, Ghirardelli, Godiva. Now I'm hungry. Um, but if I want you to buy my chocolate bar, I have to tell you what it is. How is this different from Hershey's right next to it? Oh, this has this magical thing in it, or this is, you know, vegan, or this is whatever it is. If it's the same with the book, what really does this want to be?
Mhm.
And nothing teaches you what your book wants to be like having to market it, because
Mhm.
people say, well, what's your book about? And if you can't say, you know, my book is about a police officer who works in a small town in Philadelphia area, and if you can't tell them that,
Mhm. Yeah.
so marketing teaches you that. Not fun, but really helpful, actually.
I noticed with beta reading, jumping back on that subject, was as an author gets closer to the end, that's when they start making mistakes because they're so excited. Just my thought.
No, it's true. You see the end in sight, and you figure somewhere in the editing process, and you don't realize until you've pressed send that, you know, I I've had it happen to me. I know it's happened to other authors. Oh my God, I didn't put that last page on there. Or um, in fact, I had to make I had to make fun of myself not long ago. I'm working on this novel, and I call a particular character this name in some chapters and this other name in other chapters. So I had to
Mhm.
go all the way through. When you get too excited as you write, that can happen. But honestly, for the first draft, I like to get excited, and I'll tell you why. First drafts are always big steaming piles of crap. They are. They're supposed to be. I try to tell my students that too when they're writing. Write your first draft. It's going to be bad. We all know that. Write it because you can't fix what you haven't written. So, as you're on the first, as I'm on a first draft, I just write. And then I go back. This second draft is when I start things like, oh, wait a minute. That was in the morning and now already it's midnight. Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Things like that. Or
Mhm.
calling characters wrong names. Or, there's no way that he could have been there because you just said he was here. Or, something like that. Or wait, this clue is really, really obvious. Anybody who's read even one crime novel is going to be able to tell you the story right from that. So
Hmm.
you got to, then you do the revising stuff. Once a story has shape and substance to it, then you go back, you dot the I's, you cross the T's, you make sure that you make sure one more time that the character you called Sharon is not now called Susan or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and you read it yet again, and then you have somebody else read it. Um, because it's a lot like a sculpture. When you first start with that block of wood or ice or metal or whatever you're doing, it just sits there like a lump because that's all it is. But if you don't have that piece of wood, you can't fix it. You can't do anything with it. So you have to get the first draft out, and it's ugly and it's bad. And then you go back and you, okay, I can do this, or not gonna happen.
Um, do you look at reviews? Or are you an author that just, I'm not gonna look at it.
I do look at reviews, and I'll tell you why, because I like to learn. Um, I am very, very fortunate, or whatever you want to call it. I haven't had a lot of really bad reviews. I've had them. We all get, let's face it, no book is the right book for everybody. So you're gonna have people who pan you, you know. The first thing I do, and I do this in teaching evaluations too, when students evaluate me, the first thing you do is look at the review. Is there anything in there that really is true that you can learn from? Did you really blow it? And sometimes people do. You're right. There is a lot of, or whatever. And I keep, I do look at the really good reviews too. That's what keeps an author going, especially reviews that really let you know the book resonated with a reader. So I keep those and I put them in my bank for when it's one of those days.
Me too. I do that. I pull them out. I'm having a rough day. I'm like, that's
Okay,
why I do this.
I can do this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I do read reviews. Nobody likes to hear or read a bad review. Nobody thinks that's fun. But for me anyway, I try to see if there's something I can learn from it, something I can do better. When a person says, this shouldn't work for me, I didn't like it. Okay,
Mhm,
you don't have to. There wasn't a particular thing you said was a problem that I could look at for another book.
mhm,
So some people like chicken, some people like steak. Some people think all meat is terrible.
mhm,
You can't let a bad review stop you in your tracks. Most reviewers, there's always exceptions. Most reviewers, even ones that don't give you a great review, don't make it personal. Most of them, the character's this, or the book that, or, it moved too slowly, or I don't like this in a book, or whatever.
mhm,
Most reviewers don't get personal. The only, and I am very lucky because I haven't had a reviewer make personal remarks about me, but some do. And when you get one of those, you just have to not take it personally. You just have to, you know what? That's on you. I
mhm.
can't learn anything from this, so
Yeah. Which leads me into imposter syndrome.
mm, imposter syndrome. You know how I combat that? Which is
Hmm.
not to say I never feel it. But here's something. Um, if you are a beginning writer and you're watching this, here's a big piece of advice I have to give you. Get into a community of other writers. You don't, the writing part where your hands are on the keyboard, that's you. That's you yourself. But you don't have to do the writing process alone. The community of other writers helps me to stave off the worst of imposter syndrome. Do I ever feel it? Sure, I think most people do. But if you look at what other writers are doing and experiencing and their ups and downs and this and that and the other, then you feel like, okay, it's not just me. Everybody struggles with query letters. Everybody struggles with synopses. Nobody likes it, and you can get wonderful writerly advice. One source I go to that is really very nice is, well, there's twofold. Um, it's called the Writer's Knowledge Base, WKP. I don't know if it's quite WKB.com or not, but if you just Google Writer's Knowledge Base, you'll get
Mhm.
there. It is an entirely devoted to the writing process, to writing, to developing characters, and it's all kinds of categories too. So you can look, for example, creating a main character or dealing with imposter syndrome or whatever. It's this community of writers, and it is curated by Elizabeth Span Craig and her business partner. And I'm sorry, I forget your name. Um, but the two of them put this together. She curates the content, and she's also a writer of considerable talent, New York Times bestseller, who's written several cozy series. So she puts her own stuff in there. She includes other people. Join that writing community. See that it is not just you. Yes, I'm speaking to you, brand new writers again. See that it's not just you who struggles with this or that, or who has those days when no writing gets done and now you feel like a complete failure because you're never going to write again because you didn't have any time to write and so you can't. Stop. Everybody goes through it. Breathe. Get in touch with your community. Writing communities are also incredibly helpful for ideas. For example, how do I find an editor I can trust? How do I find, what do you hear about this publisher? Is it a scam publishing thing? Does anybody know where I can find? You'd be gladly surprised, and you know this because of what you do, Robin. You'd be gladly surprised at how many things you can find, how much help you can get from other writers.
I do believe truly that authors can't do anything without a community. You you would just fold. In my opinion, I would just fold.
Yeah, we need each other as writers, especially at those times when the sales aren't going well. Maybe you got a bad review. Maybe you're stuck in a messy middle of a story and you can't see your way through that molasses. That's when you really need to vent with other writers. Like, how do I do this?
Mhm.
Um, and there are some big, I don't want to get too off topic because you asked me about imposter syndrome, but this just occurred to
No,
me.
go ahead.
There are some big challenges we writers face, right? Let's talk for a minute about AI.
Mhm.
Um, what does that mean if you're a writer? What does having AI around there do? What about people pirating our work? Um, what about people, what about companies that get access to our work and use it to train AI? How are we as writers going to deal with that? There's a lot of different answers to that, and I am not going to attempt to answer it here. But this is where we writers need to stick together to figure out how is this affecting us all? And what can we do as a group to make sure that our work that we bleed on the page gets out there is ours. If somebody has a terrible experience with a publisher or a scam artist or something like that, it's a courtesy to let other writers know, hey, this happened to me. We really do need each other, especially with the big challenges we're all facing.
I agree. In the first few written interviews I did, I would ask those questions, and it was just it was tearing people's hearts out because they lost work, or they found their book on this site that was pirated, or they found it and it's being, like you said, used as training, and it just tore people's hearts out. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to talk about nice things a little bit, But yeah, it's artwork and writing and
Music too.
yeah.
It's it's something that I really believe the creative community ought to collaborate on in some way because the visual arts community is having the same situation, and so is the music community. Um, and if I'm an aspiring, I was going to say aspiring writer, but I'll tell you why I don't like that word. If you are writing, you're a writer. You're not
Mhm.
an aspiring writer. You are a writer. The fact that you're not published yet does not make you not a writer. So aspiring, I'm like, no, you're not. You're a writer. But to get back to the point, people who are trying to get into the publishing world, people who have got their stories written and really feel like they're ready, are facing challenges that I didn't face back when I started writing. Back in 08, when 09, yes, of course, there were what people call vanity publishers where you had to pay, and there's all kinds of problems with that. But most of the publishers were either the big boys, which I knew I wasn't going to get in on because they don't even take unsolicited manuscripts, or smaller indie publishers, which is where I went, or whatever. That was what there weren't these self-publishing, and
Mhm.
some of them are very scam, some of them aren't. But there weren't those things back then. Now, people who are getting ready to get their work published are facing a lot of challenges that I didn't face because they weren't there yet. Um, I think you have to be very savvy about those things. You can't just sit there, no matter how much you love your characters, and spend all day with them and not think about these things. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but 'tis reality.
I have a few authors that are like, I don't know if this is a scam or not. I'm like, just wait a second. Let me reach out. And I ask a few other people, and then I go and I start sending, emails to that person. And hey, I'm a new author. What do you think about doing my book? Which isn't nice, but yeah, then it comes back and it's a scam.
For the low, low price.
Yeah. I mean, I I liken it to when you're on Facebook and you're minding your own business and you're commenting about that cute little doggy, and some wacko gentleman, hey, we are not friends yet, but I love your content. Can you just please friend me?
And
God
don't
bless.
forget
And and
and
then
don't forget the little roses and hearts.
yes, exactly. And then it's gone all the way to publishing companies and editors, or, oh my, ooh.
I even had twice now this happened. Um, Somebody who was cloning a famous author's profile tried to, hey, how are you? And sorry, somebody I've just friended, when that person all of a sudden DMs me, hey, how are you?
Mhm.
You know, big red flag. Um, and either they want your money, you know, for some fake publicity company, or they just want to drain your bank account. wait, it will change your life if you, yeah, no. If you
Mm-mm.
know anything about authors, you know authors don't tend to be rich. We do not have money to be spending on some, helping some Nigerian prince get to the United States or whatever.
Exactly. Oh my golly, yes.
But that said, social media has a lot to offer the author. So, as I say, if you are working on your writing and you are watching this, don't shy away from social media because you need it. You need a social media landing site and a presence. You have to deal with wackos at times, but you need the chance to, communicate, to share your work. You need to learn some technology, which again, this is just in the last 20 years or so that this has happened.
I am one of those. I started out as a reader, and I drove all the way to Michigan for a book signing from
Whoa.
Pennsylvania. I was one of my favorite authors, and then that just started me into like, looking around here, and there's a lot of authors around here from Pennsylvania, and I'm like, oh well, I don't have to drive as far. And then I started thinking, well, how can I help indie authors? The ones that are not in Michigan one day and in, North Carolina the next day. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And with our technology, it's even better. We've got Zoom right now, there's YouTube, there's other social media outlets. I know other authors who use actually more than I do. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're, Book Talk, and so on. That's another thing that authors have to contend with, which is, social media is an excellent servant, but not a very good master. And I'm sure you run into this yourself because, you're so involved with it, which is you can find yourself sucked into social media for hours and hours each day and not just watching cute bunnies hop around, just, setting up things, following what authors are doing, you know, um, it's unavoidable and hard, and every author has to decide just what is my boundary going to be. And I mean, you run into this, I'm sure, and I'd be interested in how you deal with it, which is how do you balance your need to reach out with your need for personal and professional privacy?
As a writer, if I'm a writer, I guess, I don't push my books anymore. I don't I don't do that. I was on TikTok for a long time pushing that and other authors. And well then, TikTok was gonna be going under. So I don't bother there. And I find more enjoyment pushing other people's books and saying how great they are than to stand up and say, hey, here's my book, please read it. I can't do it. So I can go on social media and talk to anybody all day about it. Kind of. I'm still a little shy and nervous, but yeah, that's me.
So, do you see yourself having a landing site that does show your books and what you do?
Um, my blog has it. It's been under the weather because of hurricane last year. That the lady's been working on it, and then well now her brother has cancer, but so I'm like about 200 reviews behind. They're all done everywhere else, just not on my blog. And well, that's where my books are, and in the back corner there. It's mostly about other people's books and my reviews and you know the process and the arcs and the beta and that kind of stuff.
It's hard to balance both, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, I don't do a lot of reviews, but I do talk about books all the time on my blog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 3 times a week, I have a blog post about crime fiction. And also, excuse me, one of those one of those posts is always puts the spotlight on one or another book. And so I also have on there on my website my stuff, my books and all that. It's it's not an easy balance to have,
Yeah.
because there are people who are writers who have books and they want you to read them, but they don't want their blogs to be all buy my book, buy my book, buy my book,
Mm-hmm.
because that's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you need your books out there. You need to tell people, hey, I wrote these two great mysteries or romance or whatever it is one writes.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is true no matter what genre one has. I've got these books, and honestly, I think being a writer and having some books out there gives you an interesting, a very useful perspective on the books you review and talk about. Hey, I'm a writer, so I can talk to you about a messy middle of a book, or I can talk to you about an unlikely Hollywood ending or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, because I do this stuff. Um, it's a really, really interesting combination. I hope that I hope that as people see these interviews you're doing, they get interested in your work too. So you get a little bit of notice. And you can decide um, how much you want to do with that. Every writer has to do that. You can decide how much to put yourself out there, but people don't know you write books if you do not tell them that you do.
Yeah, I agree, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Next person who tells you it's easy to be a writer has never tried it.
Yeah, no. What's the name of your blog? Let's come on, let's push all your socials so
Oh,
that
sure. Thank you. Let me see. Have you freed me up to share my screen?
I have no idea how to do that yet.
No problem. Not a problem. Ah, good. I can share my screen. Give me just a second. Okay. Okay. You wouldn't believe this, but just the other day, my computer had to do a completely new restart and everything. Yeah. All right. Let me share my screen. By the way, you'll be able to share screens too. If you're looking at your Zoom, you go to More, click up, and you get Share.
Okay.
Click on Share. Oh, you disabled participant screen sharing, so you'd have to go in and let me share. But that's okay.
How do
You can,
I'm in more? How do I let you
okay,
do
you
it?
go to More, you'll go to Chat, or
Yep.
not Chat. Sorry, not Chat, Share.
Share.
Yeah, push Share, and then you'd see it would share your computer screen, but not mine.
Did that work? Oh, crap. I
It's
have
okay.
I
I'll
have
put it.
participants.
All right. Here's what we'll do. It's even easier.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Okay, I'm going to chat and I am going to send you my blog address. There it
Okay.
is. You should see it.
Yes.
Then what you can do is call it up on your screen and then share it from you.
Okay. And let's go. Okay. There we go. Chat, chat. There we go. I think I did it. Did I do it? It's,
Once you have it up on your screen, then you can do share screen and share your screen.
hmm. I have group chat. I will put it in there. I am honest.
Don't worry about it.
Just
It
tell me
doesn't.
it's on there for me, so I will write it down and put it everywhere. What about
Um,
your social medias for
okay, I am on two other places. I kind of limit myself.
mhm,
I am on Blue Sky
mhm.
and I am hold on a minute, please. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the yeah. I am on Blue Sky as M. Kinberg. I am on Facebook as Margot Kinberg. That's how we met, so you know that. Margot Kinberg author. I am also an Amazon author. So if you look for Amazon author, I'm there. And I've got a little bit of a presence on Goodreads, which I admit I'm not as I don't keep up on that as well as Facebook and Blue Sky. You have to choose your social media.
Mhm.
I am specifically and deliberately no longer on X. Um, and I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, I have a hard time with X and
Yeah. Do not need the drama.
oh my gosh, yes. There we go. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I really want to thank you so much for doing this, for putting yourself out there, for setting this up with us authors, for talking to me for so long today. What you do is not easy. What you do takes a lot of time and effort to do it well, and I applaud you, and so do all of us who are just trying to get people to know who we are.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
I'm really grateful to you, and I know without even having to ask that my that other authors, my fellow authors, are just as grateful.
Anything I can do to help anybody, I'll be glad to.
That's what I mean.
Well, I will be sending the recording the next couple of days once I get it all formatted and everything. And then you can put it wherever you want. So,
This
and
has
just
been this has
keep me
been
in the
great.
loop. It
Oh,
has. I enjoyed talking to you. It wasn't like I was interviewing, I was just chit-chatting.
that's the best kind of interview
Mhm.
where two people who are interested in the same thing chat. That's the best kind of interview. So you done good. You done real good. And yeah, as soon as you have it up, I will keep you in the loop about my own projects. And as soon as you have it up, if you'll just let me know, I'll splash it everywhere and I'll tell my other indie author friends they have got to get on your list.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You have a good night.
You too. Thanks again. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.